Hello students. So welcome now to this topic, the faceless assessment, the faceless appeal and the faceless penalty procedure. Students, please understand this, that this scheme is all about the paradigm shift. Students, this is a scheme which is all about the paradigm shift from what we witness presently, which is the manual or the physical process or the procedure followed for the purpose of undertaking the assessment proceedings. Thereafter, the appeal and finally the penalty. All these are the physical procedure. And therefore, students, they have thought that it's high time now that we should now converge into what? Into a complete faceless scheme of doing the assessment. This couldn't have come better time than present. We all know that the COVID issues and all, and see, the government has already was doing this planning well before. Obviously, they were not doing the planning for the COVID factor, but definitely the brainstorming was happening right from earlier. The entire system was getting in place, and see, we can say like a blessing in disguise. Now, neither the assessee nor the department needs to be present physically at a particular location so as to conduct the assessment. On a virtual note, that the assessment could be conducted, and that's exactly what it is. Now, students, why this particular faceless was required and why they have done it? Obviously, everyone knows one important factor, and that is the corruption. The moment the person to person contacts takes place, that is the point wherein the subjectivity gets involved. That is a time wherein obviously that is what I said, the corruption part becomes rampant, and this also create a lot of delays in the form of an adjournment, which may not be required, but still the physical process of the assessment or the appeal or the penalty creates that level of stress to the system, whereby it leads to finally what, students? It leads to finally the delays. Students, the fact that the return of income is filed on electronic basis now, and that has been happening for quite a long time. So already the artificial intelligence, students, the artificial intelligence was already there to the income tax department. Moreover, even the statement of financial transaction, students, 285BA, remember that 114E, the statement of financial transaction also was supposed to be filed or is to be filed on the e-filing node. So whatever intelligence or whatever is the data that is required, that is already available before the income tax department in e-format. That is the reason why they thought that now the fact that we already have those information with us, it is important that now the procedure, the proceedings should commence not through the physical mode. Because understand one thing, if I am holding very sensitive data and then I still want to conduct a physical presence of the SSC, physical proceedings, then obviously with these sensitive data which is there in your possession, you will try to use them for your own personal benefit, or the SSC will try to set you up for ensuring that the assessment is not on a higher side. So therefore, students, if the government has collected all these intelligence data, and that which they are in a position to do it because of these all the system that is in place, it will completely spoil the effort, the infrastructure, if we still follow what? The faceless proceedings of the assessment. And that is the reason why, students, this has been completely shifted to a new era of the faceless assessment scheme. Previously, students, we had this e-assessment which got converted. There were modification in certain jurisdictional aspect, and that e-assessment got converted into a faceless assessment. So those students appearing for May 21, November 21, for all of you, this particular faceless assessment appeal and penalty would be one of the important topic, because obviously this is all amended as per the Finance Act 2020. One very valid question that will come in the minds of the students is that sir, first of all, before I go with this one, I have also, for the YouTube lecture, those who are viewing in the YouTube, towards the description box, students, you will find the link wherein you can take up the PDF. That is one thing that you can do. Now, students, one particular point. The students will ask us, sir, fine, what would be there in our examination on this topic? That is one thing which has been there in your mind. So take it from me, students. If at all something has to come in the examination, it will be what? It will be MCQs. They may target like MCQs for a couple of marks, something of that sort, because what you need, there cannot be any by hearting of this, because just the steps. What is the following steps that they are going to do? How the jurisdictions are being allocated, how the case will get moved. So therefore, they may in fact come up with the MCQs, and that is one of the way they are going to test you on this particular topic of faceless assessment, appeals, and the penalties. Let's start with this one, students. What I'm going to do is that I've made question and answer format for the faceless assessment, which I'm going to take you through. We'll try to understand the concept. That is all that we need to do. And then thereafter, let's see what comes in the examination. So here, introduction, if you can see herein, the objective of this one, why this particular faceless assessment as a concept was being introduced. So this is what was being there. I just wanted to start with. So the maxims of the faceless, the maxim is what? Maximum governance and minimum government. So let the governance which is there, let that take the center stage, and let the government takes the backstage. Let the government take the backstage is what is the mantra of this particular faceless assessment scheme. Now let's start with this particular point number 1. If you see the journey from the digitization to a faceless interface, what are the key events? 2015, use of emails to interact with the taxpayer on the pilot basis. That is what we have been seeing on this regard. Thereafter, September 2017, e-proceeding module introduced in the e-filing portal for scrutiny assessment. So e-filing portal, that was there in the scrutiny. Obviously, it was an optional thing. Budget announced for the e-assessment, which I told you it was there till only 1 year. It was there. Budget February 2020, the budget which for May 21, November 21, announced to widen the scope. So from e-assessment, the scope got widened to faceless assessment, and further it also introduced the faceless appeal and the taxpayer charter. And finally, in September 2020, there was launch of what? Launch of herein faceless appeal scheme, and that exactly what the entire flow that has taken place up till now. What is the scope and all, students? We have seen what is there presently, what would be there from August, and after the assessment order, how the things will be considered. So you just see this one, students, the third box. Once an assessment order is passed, following due process are as prescribed in the scheme, that is rectification therein, appellate order, giving effects, prosecution related notices, review proceedings under section 263 will be taken up by the jurisdiction officer. Now what exactly it is, students, I'll let you know. Students, herein this particular entire scheme, students, if you see all together, this is a point that we should know. Just read this particular part, students, first of all of you. All the assessment order, students, all the assessment order will need to be analyzed under this scheme only. All the assessment order will need to be analyzed only under this scheme. These orders will be passed by a centralized processing unit, which is known as what? These orders will be passed by a centralized processing unit, which will be known as a National Faceless Assessment Center, NFAC. So the entire control is with the NFAC. Students, I've written one statement, but I'll just speak about it straight away. What CPC Bangalore is for e-filing of the ROI. Please pay attention. What CPC Bangalore is for e-filing of the ROI, the NFAC is for whom? For the faceless assessment. In one sentence, this is exactly what is this NFA, the role of NFAC is all about. What CPC Bangalore is for e-filing of the ROI, NFAC is for what? Is for this particular faceless assessment scheme. Now, if you see herein, as the name suggests, the control over the order passing would be of the NFAC. So the SSC, as being an outsider, if I am an SSC, I will give a feel that I don't know who is there behind the NFAC. Who are the people who are there? The best part is that maybe that the officer who is doing the assessment, they may not also know me. They may in fact try to. It is just like what? ICI is there. Just think like this, friends. So I am the examiner SSC. There is an ICI and then there is an examiner. That exactly what is there now. This is the system. Earlier what used to be there? You and the examiner were meeting with each other. Isn't it? Now primarily when you are, what is the situation at this stage? When you are giving the examination, you think the ICI is correcting. ICI then give this particular paper to someone else. These are the main examiners. So you don't know. You are a student from, say, Delhi. Your paper is, you expect that the examiner somewhere from Delhi would be checking. No. In the new NFAC, the examiner from Delhi is not going to check your paper. It can be the examiner from Chennai. He is the one who is checking your paper. The best part is that the examiner in Chennai doesn't know that it is of a particular person in Delhi. He may not know. And obviously, you as an SSC also will never know with whom this particular thing is going on. For both examiner and the SSC, there is only a common interface. Who is the interface? ICI. So, whatever submission that you do it to the ICI, NFAC. NFAC will then give the submission to whom? To this regional officer who is given the task of doing the assessment. If anything that any support that NFAC will require, the examiner will require, that they want some valuer, some expert guidance. So what the examiner will do? He will contact whom? The NFAC, that is the ICI. ICI will accordingly put these experts for the purpose of guidance and all. And that exactly what is the situation right now as far as the NFAC is concerned. At the end of the day, when the results are out, who communicates the results? ICI. From which website? ICI. So, primarily, examiner doesn't communicate to the SSC. It is the ICI who is doing the communication with the SSC, and that exactly what will happen in the NFAC also. So between now the SSC and that particular assessing officer who has come in between, it is the ICI. Now once the assessment is completed, students, and the order is passed by the NFAC given to the SSC, thereafter to execute the orders like recoveries and all of prosecution case, then your local AO who is near to your jurisdiction, not that person from Chennai, but the local AO, he is the one who is supposed to implement this particular order. Also, students, we have seen like commissioner can revise the order. The commissioner exercising power under section 263, can they revise this order? And the answer is yes. So those things can be done. Those things, students, can be done. Now that will be done by the respective jurisdictional income tax authority having the jurisdiction over the SSC. That exactly what it is. So this is what, students, is the entire concept of NFAC. Now we'll just try to read this particular point and we'll try to just wrap it up in this particular case. So here, student, what point number 3 says, does the scheme applies to the ongoing as well as or only to the new case that are selected for the scrutiny? So students, in this case, those which has been concluded, definitely on them you cannot do NFAC, the faceless assessment. But all those which are not yet concluded, the proceeding is still going on, all these schemes, for them you definitely will be also doing the faceless. The procedure would be that of the faceless assessment. So these are the bit of important points from the scheme that you should know for the purpose of your MCQ part, students. You have to be careful. Let's see what are the terminologies that is used, like the way I have told you CPC Bangalore. So what kind of terminology is there so far as this faceless assessment is concerned? So here in, students, under the scheme, the assessment of the taxpayer will be carried out by the assessment centers set up by the CBDT. So who is the one who is setting up this particular thing? It is set up by the CBDT. These are namely NFAC, Regional Faceless Assessment Centers, RFAC. So the main is the NFAC, regional is the local primary, the units, assessment unit, the one who actually does the assessment, verification units, technical unit, and the review unit. So there are these processes. Now you'll say, sir, what is this verification technical? Technical units are those who have got like valuation officers and all, so as to provide these technical expertise. Review unit, students, are herein, students, just to ensure that the quality check and the quality standards of each and every orders are maintained, that there will also be a review unit at the AO's level only, don't worry. So these are at the AO's level, but just see the kind of cross-checking which can now take place. Why you can do that? Because the time gets saved. These are the times which will be saved in the entire process. The SSC is going to upload the document in a particular format. Once the document will get uploaded, the data gets captured, and once the data gets captured, primarily whatever the things that needs to be assessed, that is how the AO is going to assess further, and accordingly he shall pass the order. You will learn it is a draft order, and as I told you, this draft order gets reviewed by various other particular units and all, so as to have a standardization across all the level of the orders which are being passed. And that is what create that level of sophistication in the system. So that is the benefit, students. Their functions are as under. Let's see one by one. Maybe even this can be. Don't skip anything, students. Please read everything on this one. NFAC will facilitate the conduct of e-assessment proceedings in a centralized manner. Broadly, NFAC for assessment will be what? Central Processing Center, CPC, is for the processing of electronically filed return. NFAC will act as what? NFAC will act as a single point of contact for all the communications between the taxpayer and the department. See, taxpayer and the department, or point number 2, various units of the tax department set up in pursuant to the scheme. Like I told you just now, if supposedly some expert guidance is required, to whom that examiner will approach, he will approach to this and he will get that technical unit on the job to assist the assessment unit. So all this coordination would be done via or through the NFAC. RFAC major function would be to facilitate the conduct of e-assessment proceedings in the jurisdictional region of the Principal Chief Commissioner. Wherever the assessment unit is there, so that particular person will be the regional assessment RFAC unit. So that commissionerate will facilitate the local AUs, so that's to ensure that they are in a best possible way competent enough or made competent enough to pass their orders. Assessment unit, I have already clarified, it shall perform the functions of making the assessment, including the identification of points or issues, seeking information or clarification, etc., which will be communicated to various stakeholders through NFAC. Now, virtual unit, which is there, it shall perform the functions of verifications like inquiry, cross-verification, examination of books of accounts, examination of witness, etc. And that exactly how the things has been there. So, verification units are for these inquiries and the cross-verification examination of the books. So, what will happen would be that all these things. So, like there is a verification, calling for the details, then checking these things with the ROI. That is for the verification. See, such a decentralized approach. And the assessment unit will then be putting his brain on that particular thing. So, that details of verification, like just think like this: verification unit, article clerks. In fact, you should try to start naming them. This is what is your ICA. Just like an ICA. Think like an ICA. Herein, the verification unit primarily, like now we don't consider from the examination point of view, but verification are like an article clerks. They will verify. You do what? Tax audit, all you all do, isn't it? What do you do? Verify. Who is the assessment unit then? Your boss. He will apply his brain finally to conclude what needs to be done. And that exactly what the things would be considered. We will say, sir, then RFAC, don't stretch it like this. There is always a limit, students, isn't it? So therefore, in this case, so assessment unit is your boss and virtual verification unit is this one. Now this TU, now see, take TU like valuation officer, and then RU here in the review unit. The draft order which is in pass again is reviewed so as to create a standardization. See the kind of system. So don't. It will take one full decade, but after 1 decade or so, I'm telling you, once the thing streamline entirely, the good part of my life which I have lived, and the best part of the life that you are going to live, we will be having a two different particular journey. Because obviously another 10 more years, I will say that is the best primary which I will live further. But that 10 years will make them to stabilize the entire system. That will get stabilized. And your next 10 years, probably when you are learning, but while department is learning, there are a lot of obviously trial and errors that is keep on going to happen the way we are finding it with GST. So you will also learn while the government of India will also learn, and the system will be up and functional in the 10 years period. India will change completely, students. In this regard, this is something, it's not a kind of an amendment. This is in fact, they want to change the entire system. And if income tax changes, GST has changed, remember every government authority will be forced to change. If the change starts at the top, at the central level, everything it will trickle down to the bottom. So I think this is a hugely a much bold step, very bold step. Obviously, as I told you, this will have its own lot of uploading is hanging and all these will be there primarily. I'm telling you, 1 decade, 10 years. It will take the entire system to formidably gets entrenched in the entire country, and there is a normalcy into the system that people are just used to it as if it's just another thing that has came up, isn't it? So now, students, here we have got, so what will happen? Just imagine a situation. Why I'm saying, why should be so excited about this new system? The verification unit is sitting in Kerala, and the assessment unit is sitting in Delhi, and the SSE is out of Mumbai. This is possible. Technical unit may be in Kolkata. See the beauty herein. And that is what NFAC will try to divert the resources primarily. This is the job of NFAC, to keep diverting the resources from this to that, so that whatever is the best available thing which is there, they will push it to those particular cases. And they are the one primarily who will be the one from whom this particular the work is going to get done, which presently was not happening. Mumbai AO was only the one who was supposed to verify, also apply his mind, and even that valuation officer would be somewhere from Mumbai. Everything was taking place in this way itself. And the best part would be, students, that the AO may not know who is the one who is verifying it. That is the best part of it. The AO does not know, AU does not know from where this particular technical inputs are coming. Only one person is knowing, and that is NFAC knows, because they are the one with whom you are on constant conversation. Wherever you get stuck, tell NFAC, they will do the needful. So this is exactly what the situation shall be, students. Such a powerful authority that NFAC has will be in this coming times. We'll see how this proceeding will be initiated, how the intelligence would be there with the whom. The intelligence would be there with the Income Tax Department, and based on those intelligence, the NFAC will serve what? The notice. This notice of scrutiny. 143.2. What is that? The notice of scrutiny. And what we will say, after service of this notice, the proceedings begins or initiated. Isn't it? How the cases will be assigned to the AUs under the scheme. So the cases to be assigned to the AU, students, NFAC will assign the cases to the AU in any one of the RFAC through an automated allocation system, and the taxpayer would not know which AU is dealing with this assessment. That is what it is. Thus, an AU, say based in Orissa, will take up the assessment of a taxpayer based in Delhi, and all the communication will be routed through the NFAC. Students, there is one point which I have discussed over here. One particular point, students, which I have discussed over here. You will see, sir, what point that you have discussed. Just pay attention to this particular point, students, in this particular context. Now let's take the things further, students, over here. Now the above particular this point, the challenge would be that, like the assessees of Mumbai, AU is from, say, Delhi. What is the challenge that we are talking about it? Here the challenge, students, would be that the binding effect of the order, or sorry, the binding effect of the judgments. So whether the judgment which is based of which state, assessee state or the AO state, whose state it would be binding. So it would be that of the assessee states. To that extent, students, primarily the review unit may try to review this particular order for the purpose of the assessing unit which judgment they are putting it, and to that extent they will try to review their order so as to have the consistency. This would be the possible role of the review unit. Once the AU, the assessment unit, would have passed their order, draft order, that will get reviewed. The review unit may have the information from NFAC that the law applicable, like in the state of Maharashtra, on that basis you review this particular order. So that is the thing which should be on the basis of that. The review unit will be reviewing the order, and on that basis finally that they are going to pass the final orders. Now that is what I have written in point number 7. So you can just read it later on. Point number 8, if you see, students, whether TDS related proceedings and proceedings under Black Money Act and also are covered under the scheme. Presently it is not covered, but tomorrow it may be covered in this regard. But today it is not covered. That is what it is. How will the notices, orders be communicated to the taxpayer? So now you can read this thing. I have given you enough of ideas and all. Now this is an important one. Can taxpayer go for a personal hearing? Personal hearing is not there at all. But in case if he wants it, then electronic hearing through video conferencing, that can be done. Okay, that would be arranged by the RFSC. The one where the assessing unit is sitting, they will be the one who would arrange that video conferencing, and through that they will do the personal hearing. Okay, so that is precisely the things in which the situation will be there. So that will be also under the control of whom? Control of this particular, the commissionerates and all. And they are the one, because the Director General or the Chief Commissioner, their jurisdiction is very wide, isn't it? So that way, primarily, they will be the one who will then organize this video conferencing for the purpose of the hearing. But again, they will, maybe the SSC cannot see the AO, the AU cannot see the SSC. That wheel would always be there. For sure, he will not be knowing who is that person, primarily. So they couldn't hear in. Maybe the only officer who both of them can see, only officer that both of them could see is this commissionerate or the Director General. So this is the possibility. Let's see primarily what they are trying to say, but they will not give, this is not something that they will encourage, but yes, in an exceptional cases and all, they may in fact try to do it. Students, you remember in assessment proceedings, I gave you one example about that stockbrokers audit. A stockbrokers audit, how complicated these stockbrokers audits are, the assessments are. And therefore, if supposingly one AO is stuck, AO, assessing officer, in the present scheme, then you also understood that how difficult then it is to really get this assessment resolved. He will then have to refer to the JCIT. He may then have to refer to the commissioner for the purpose of special audit. The commissioner would be looking to transfer the cases if he thinks that this AO is not competent enough to really handle these cases. So there are a lot of issues that gets surfaced. But in the today's time of this particular faceless, the NFAC will have to assign the AU. So if the NFAC has to assign the AU, accordingly they will assign that AU who has the knowledge, credibility and the understanding of such particular category of the SSC. And this is precisely what this again becomes a kind of a game changer thing. How will the assessment process will run? Broadly, the assessment process will run as under. Initiate. NFAC will initiate the assessment proceeding by serving the notice under 143(2). Reply. Taxpayer will have to need to reply within 15 days. Then allocation they will do. So even the initiation will not be done through the AU. AU only gets work. Primarily, AU will only get the work. It is NFAC who will decide whether the scrutiny needs to be done or not, based on the artificial intelligence which is there in the position of the NFAC. So in that case, the taxpayer will need to reply within 15 days. Allocation and AU will be allotted the case electronically. And this AU will be under the, here we have written R, make this as RFAC, Regional Faceless Assessment Center. So obviously wherever that assessment is, that commissionerate will be having the overview of that AU. Communication channel. NFAC will then be the communication channel. Channel between whom? Between the taxpayer, VU, verification unit, technical unit for technical inputs, and assess the AU. So they are the only one with whom everyone is going to coordinate. Consolidation of information. NFAC will consolidate all information and send it to AU. Examination and preparation of draft assessment order. After examining all the information, AU will prepare the draft assessment order. And finally, students, for ensuring the quality and consistency of the draft order, the review unit will step in, isn't it? So therefore that would be there, and that is how the things would be considered. Students, you can read this particular part now. There is not much of thing. You can now you have understood everything on this part. So I have given the pros and the cons. What is the advantage and what are the disadvantage? They will not ask you this, but still you should know that this is the advantage of the faceless assessment scheme, which we have discussed primarily, that whatever advantages that we have spoken about it, primarily that we can just go through it once. Other provision of the faceless assessment, students, what will happen now? Various powers which are being there the modification needs to be done because of the change in this particular concept of the faceless. Lot of other provision will have to have a bit of modification to accommodate with the new scheme of the faceless scheme of the assessment. So what is the power which the CG will have? See the herein. The central government may make a scheme by notification in the official gazette for the purpose of what? exercise of all or any of the power and performance of all or any of the functions conferred or assigned to the income tax authority by or under this act, because obviously the jurisdiction also will now change. The basis in which the allocations are being done to the AOs and all the things now will have to undergo a windfall change. So that is what the CG will have to then start notifying to that effect. Vesting the jurisdiction with the AO as referred in 124, that is what I was explaining. Exercise of the power of the transfer of the cases, how the transfer will take place, if at all, from one AU to another AU. What kind of procedure that may be required to be done. Exercise of the jurisdiction in case of change of the incumbency. The AU was sitting and they retire. That AU got retired and the new AU has joined. So what could be the possible procedure that has to be followed? So as I told you, the law is evolving now, and therefore you will find that next 3-4 years, a lot of changes in these particular provision will take place so as to make this entire concept complete. Okay, so that definitely is something on the cards, and they will have it in the 3-4 years time. In the timeline period, everything will get settled. The CG may make a scheme by notification in the official gazette for the purpose of calling for the information. Now, how the information will be called? Who will be the one? Well, maybe the verification unit will be the one who will be calling the information from the outsiders, or NFAC will give the notices and all. So that scheme for 133, 133B, all that powers of the income tax authority for the purpose of collecting the information, these will have to accommodate with the new scheme of doing the assessment. Same is also with the case of this 142A, valuation officer, isn't it? Which we have seen just now about the valuation officer and the special audit. How the reference to the valuation officer, which is actually nothing but the technical unit where this particular pointers would be referred. So that would be there. And that is it. So students, this is precisely how the things will be there. This NFAC, primarily, they are the one who will be interfacing with whom? With the taxpayer, and the NFAC will be interfacing with AU, VU, TU and RU. And these would be under some regional faceless assessment centers. Okay, again I am repeating, it need not necessarily be with the same commissionerate. As I told you, the assessment unit and the verification unit may be at a different level, you never know. Okay, so that is a scenario that can exist, that may exist. Now students, with this particular part, so this flowchart has been explained to you students. You can just go through this flowchart again. Flowchart students. Although first the taxpayer, the notice will be served on the taxpayer. Thereafter he will submit the response, that is within 15 days. And then he will assign, once it is done, he will assign this case to one AU. And thereafter, what will happen? Request for the information, verification and technical assistance. Wherever the AU has to get these things, he will then approach to NFAC. NFAC will then, after getting this particular point, will then go to verification unit, may go to the technical unit for all these things, and based on that he will then give these responses which he has got it from VU, TU to whom? To the assessment unit. Thereafter, once he gets it, draft assessment order. Once the draft assessment order has been given, then thereafter what will happen herein? The finalized assessment provides show cause notice on all the additions, and then thereafter he will then also assign the order for the review by the reviewing unit. If they concur means say that perfect, is all fine, they will concur it. So therefore, in this case, in this situation, point number 12, finalize the assessment or provide the show cause notice again in this regard, because this will happen, suggest modification. The new show cause notice will be based on the modification, if at all would be there, or else they are going to finalize the assessment. Fine. And that exactly how the things would be considered. Thereafter students, once this has been done, thereafter students, point number 13, the communication of modification to the another AU, that would also be done through whom? Through this particular NFAC. Please understand that review unit also will come via NFAC. Review unit will also come via NFAC to approach to the taxpayer and to approach to whom? To the assessment unit to enforce the order. So approaching in point number 13 is because ultimately the assessment unit would be the one to enforce the order finally, that this is the final order that has been passed. So this is another assessment unit. You will say, sir, who is that another assessment unit? The assessment unit which is finally going to enforce or implement the orders. That is the case, which is actually the jurisdictional AO. So that is precisely how the things are there. Now students, please, you can read this particular part. Any penalty of the non-compliances will also be suggested in this regard. All of you just read this particular point now once. General points and all. Read once. I have explained now everything which has to do with what? The faceless assessment scheme. Okay, students. Now we go to the next part, and that is a faceless appeal scheme. Small things are there. We'll do that. Penalty also, one page is there. Let's try to wrap it up in this way. Now students, in the case of the appeal unit, the appeal category, let's now look upon towards the appeal side. Faceless appeal scheme. Understand that we all know the hierarchy is CIT appeals, thereafter it goes to the ITAT, thereafter High Court and Supreme Court. Is it that it would be faceless till Supreme Court? This faceless appeal scheme, will it be the case that it is a faceless appeal till Supreme Court of India? And the answer is no. This faceless is only up to CIT appeal, because he is an income tax authority. And that is the reason why, students, one of the endeavor obviously, students, is about to ensure that the corruption is not there. Because with the CIT appeals also there is a possibility, because he happens to be an income tax authority. But most important thing, students, this is a very important stage where the department or the government can try to ensure that the unnecessary litigations and the unnecessary appeals which gets formed, these are being avoided. So that is one thing that they will try to do it, because again the scheme is very robust. Why I say it is robust? Because the way we have discussed for assessment, that there is a review that will be done. Here also the order which will be passed by the appeal unit, definitely headed by some CIT appeals and all, their order also will be subject to some sort of a reviews and all. So obviously, which all these kind of a filtration, checking and cross-checking, when I don't know who's that other person who is going to review my orders and all, so definitely an element of fear would always be there. See, up till now what used to happen was that I have passed the order, let the court now take it further. But here what may happen is that there are many eyes within the department who may be looking into my work post facto. When I say post facto, means after I have done my work, then thereafter there are many eyes, intangible eyes. We don't know who they are, who is going to get into a review. So therefore even that diligence is assured through this kind of a mechanism. And therefore that diligence, students, is what is called for. And hence this is also one of the big breakthrough, because if you do this, what will be assured would be that the subsequent unnecessary litigations, wherein, if you remember, students, we have discussed in the appeal also that the government is the maximum or the biggest litigant is the government of India, the biggest litigant. And if that is the case, students, obviously this particular scheme enables what? This particular scheme therefore enables to stop those litigation coming out from the income tax department itself. And therefore this is one of the purpose, apart from definitely the purpose of ensuring that the corruption subjectivities and all are not there. So students, here what I'll do is that first we can just try to, this is important for MCQ. So what would be outside the purview of the faceless scheme would be the international taxation, because obviously jurisdiction are different, so we will require a different, it is all about the different jurisdiction, and that is one will not be considered on the faceless side. Serious fraud cases, major tax evasion, sensitive and search matters, and the Black Money Act. So right now they are outside the purview, so therefore one thing could be there, that this could be an MCQ based question that can be targeted in this regard. Let's the ecosystem, students, of the appeal is appellant is there, National Faceless Appeal Center, National Faceless APC. Okay, then there is a RFAPC, Regional Faceless Appeal Center, which will have multiple this thing, and there are 4 regional students in this case, and they are 4 is the Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. So that is a regional faceless appeal centers, and within that they will have various commissionerate to whom finally the case will go. So these are again the appeal unit will not interface with the appellant. Everyone is going to interface with whom? National Faceless Appeal Center. So that is how the things would be considered, students. Let's see the entire flow process. This is a very important flow chart which will set you up for how the entire scheme would be taken forward in this particular National Faceless Appeal Scheme. So students, starting with this particular part, wherein once the appeal is filed with the, obviously the assessee has to approach to the NFAC, file an appeal before the NFAC. Then what the NFAC will do, he will then accordingly will assign the case to a specific AU. AU means the appeal unit. Okay, so now students, here AU we are using the word, and therefore the assessing officer, we are using the word AO now. Otherwise this AU will get confused. While we were doing assessment, at that time of the assessment, we were referring to the assessing officer as AU, assessing unit. So now we will transform this to be AO, and this will be AU, that is assessment unit. So assign the case, point number 1, to specific AU in any one of the RF regional faceless appeal center. Thereafter they will request for what? For more information from the appellant and the report from also from the income tax department, the assessment wing. So they will accordingly will give this intimation to whom? To the NFAC. Now NFAC accordingly will do what? Once they have received the same, they will serve upon the notice to the appellant. That is first point. Thereafter what they will also do? Request for a report from NFAC or assessing officer on the grounds of the appeal or any other information required by AU. So they are requesting for a report from NFAC or the assessing officer on grounds of appeal or any other information required by whom? Required by the assessing unit, appeal unit, sorry. So they will, so to the assessee and to the NFAC or AU. What will happen? The appellant will then file the response, and also this stage he can also go for the additional evidence and the additional ground. Remember, additional the reasons of the students. Please understand that rule 46A that we did about when the additional evidence and the additional appeals can be submitted, under what circumstances, or the grounds. That ground will remain the same. What we are only discussing is the procedure. The ground, if you remember, primarily that all that 4 point that the AO should have or ought to have admitted the additional evidences. The assessee was prevented. The assessee was prevented with sufficient cause, which additional evidences, the evidences which was called upon by the AO, isn't it? So those, the ground which are there, that primarily will remain the same. Only thing that we are focusing here in this, the faceless scheme, is the procedures. So this would be the timing, students, when he is going to go for this particular filing of this particular additional evidence and the additional grounds. And also the response would be received from whom? From the NFAC or the assessing officers. Then they will send the response received from NFAC or AO or appellant to whom? To AU. AU is the appeal unit. So they will send all the response that they get from both the parties. Point number 6. In case of enhancement or reduction of the refund, issue a show cause notice or else share what? Draft order. Because obviously if he is enhancing it further, so the show cause notice means an opportunity of being heard would be given to whom? To the appellant, that why I should not disallow the expenditure which the AO has not done it. I think that power is always there. The power of the CIT appeal is coterminous with that of the AO. He can do what AO can do, and also he can do what AO has failed to do. We have seen all those things. So anyway, so that is one thing. So here what will happen? Accordingly, finalize the appeal as per the draft order or send it to the review to any other to any other what? To any other AU. That particular draft order in this regard would be given in this regard. Thereafter, students, herein the final particular order would be served in this regard situation. After hearing, after the SSC is being heard, the NFAC will then pass the final order, and maybe he can also go for the review as well. So definitely he can also then give to the review unit of the order which has been passed by whom? By the appeal unit. So this is precisely what, students, will happen, and that is where the review unit will come into play. Appeal unit 2, AU2, for the review purpose. So students, this is what it is in this regard. Now, roles and responsibilities of various faceless appeal centers. So the main is the NFAPC, that is National Faceless Appeal Center. Then there are the Regional Faceless Appeal Center, Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata. And then there is within that region, all the appeal units are there, which is known as the AU. What AU will do to facilitate the conduct of e-appeal proceedings, to perform the function disposing of the appeal, which includes admission of the additional grounds and additional evidence, admission of delayed appeal, admission. So this is the function of the appeal unit. So maybe, students, they can target like this. They will ask you an MCQ about this part. Say for example, if I were you, I will ask you, if I were the examiner, I will ask like this. Making further inquiries in the appeal is a function of AU, RFAPC, and FAPC. Who has got whose function is to make the further inquiries in the new faceless scheme, and everyone will write NFAPC. No, students, that is one thing which has been there. NFAC is only an interface, coordination. Through NFAC that the things are done. It is not NFAC who is doing it. Through NFAC that it is inquired. But who is doing the inquiry? Whose function? Who will decide whether the inquiry is required or not? How much inquiry has to be done? All that factor will be decided by the appeal unit, the one who is actually doing that particular or hearing that particular case. Fine. So that is how, students, you should be very careful about it. This is how you may get an MCQ based question. So that is precisely the point. Basic procedural aspects, students. Let's quickly read all these things. Exchange of communication exclusively by the electronic mode. All the communication between the NFAPC and the appellant or its authorized representative or other person shall be exchanged exclusively by electronic mode. All internal communication amongst NFAPC, all this internal communication between whom? Within the department. But which department? National Faceless Appeal, Regional Faceless Appeal Center, NFAC, AO, Appeal Unit, as the case may be, shall be exchanged exclusively by the electronic mode. So that is how even within themselves they would be doing through emails and all those stuff. NFAPC shall assign the appeal to specified appeal unit in any one regional faceless center through automated allocation system. Even at subsequent stage, allocation would be at random basis. Admission of belated appeal. Now this appeal unit may admit. Can you see this one? So please understand, this function is important for MCQ purpose. Herein they can ask you who is supposed to do this. So appeal unit may admit the appeal if it is satisfied that the appellant has sufficient cause for not filing the appeal within the time limit or payment of advance tax as envisaged in section 249 subsection 4 when the return of income is not filed, or it may reject the appeal. He says that no, there is no sufficient cause of this delay. Procedure after admission of the appeal. Once the procedure has been filed, then as we have seen, the arrow goes from the appeal unit. Appeal unit, it goes to NFAPC for what? To get the document or more information from the appellant, or for whom? From the NFAC. Get the report from them, or he want to do a further inquiry. He wants that let there be more evidence be collected. So that again AU, appeal unit, will be doing it through an FAPC and get these stakeholders, namely the SSC and other stakeholders, the department. Who's the department here? The assessment wing. So they are the stakeholder and they will get that relevant information from them. To file the reply within the date and time or extended time as specified by the NFAPC, And then once the communication of the above report, so who will communicate? Obviously, the SSE or NFAC, they cannot directly communicate this report with whom? With the appeal unit. Students, just make one correction here in NFAPC, National Faceless Assessment Center I have written here. This is not an assessment center. National Faceless Appeal Center, isn't it? And this is NFAC is perfect. After that, procedure for additional grounds of appeal. So appellant will file the additional ground. You know that point number 4, which actually went from the SSE to the NFAPC. So that is what we are. So each of that step of that master flowchart is getting explained in this particular regard. Okay, so each of the steps in that master flowchart is getting explained in this case. So appellant file additional ground in prescribed format NFAPC, appeal unit for record purpose, and NFAC. First of all, NFAC obtain for the comments. So what NFAPC will do, because that additional ground has been filed, so what he will say, ask the assessment unit that whether this omission which was there at your side, means SSE has not made, whether this particular omission that the SSE has done in the appeal, not putting for this ground, what is your observation on that? He will ask the NFAC also on that, or the assessing officer, that what is your stand that the SSE is filing a new ground in the midst of the appeal, in the middle of the appeal. So obtain for comments. So accordingly they will give the comment to whom? To NFAPC. And obviously this additional ground and this comment will then be given to whom? NFAPC. So who will be exchanging these comments, forwarding the comment to inform or to inform that if no comments are filed, means if they may get the comment or they may not get the comment from the NFAC or AO. So on that basis they will give it to whom? To the appeal unit. And if he is satisfied, he can admit the additional ground, or otherwise means he says no, the SSE does not have a sufficient cause, or the omission was willful on the part of the SSE and therefore he may deny it. And accordingly that is precisely how the things would be considered. On this he will communicate to the NFAPC. NFAPC will communicate, students, to the appellant. Here please write appellant. He will then communicate to the appellant. Fine, students. Procedure for filing additional evidence. The same grounds which I was talking about, there was this rule 46A. The SSE was prevented by sufficient cause, isn't it? Opportunity was not given. The AO should have admitted the evidence, all that thing. So here the appellant primary will file an additional evidence as per section 46A with whom? With NFAPC. Clockwise, students, go clockwise. NFAPC for furnishing a report within specified time. So he will give it to again to AO and NFAC, the assessment wing, that look, these evidences were not before you. These evidences are getting put forth for the first time before the appellate authorities. So you give me your report. So this report will be given to NFAPC, that is the appeal center. Appeal center will then give it to the appeal unit, the one who is sitting on that, and then they will, on that basis, on the basis of report, then they will take a call that whether the additional evidences should be admitted or they should be rejected. And that whatever is the call that they have taken, they will inform to NFAPC, and NFAPC thereafter will inform to the appellant and the the AO. Here you can just correct it to NFAC or AO. Here you, instead of NFAPC, please correct it to NFAC or AO. Fine, students. So this is a flow in which the thing. So it's a procedure thing. Whatever we are discussing there, one step. This is the flow within them, how they are going to communicate. So just be very careful. You don't know how twists and turns that these people will make in terms of the MCQs and all. And once it has been admitted, if it is admitted, procedure when the additional evidence under Rule 46 are admitted, then what will happen? So here the appeal unit will prepare the notice to examine the evidence or to cross-examine the witness produced by the appellant or to rebut such details. So then he is going to go for the examination of this additional evidence, and for that purpose he will give this particular thing to whom? To PC that I want to cross-examine the evidences and all which has been served. So NFAPC will get it done through whom? Through this assessment wing. NFAPC will get this particular thing done through NFAC or the assessing unit, who thereafter, after doing this cross-examination or examining the witnesses or the evidences, they will file the report to NFAPC. Accordingly, they will go to appeal unit. Accordingly, they will go to the appeal unit. Students, this NFAPC, National Faceless Appeal Center. Appeal Center. Okay. So procedure when the additional evidence under Rule 46A are admitted. So this is precisely how the things are there. Finally, if you go here, request by NFAC or the AO for production of any documents or evidence or examination of any witness. So while they are examining, obviously they were called upon, they are now examining some witness. Now to examine the witness, they want a document. Some document, some evidence is what they require. Now these documents and these evidences primarily are with the SSC. Now how do they approach to the SSC, NFAC and all, while performing this task which has been given to do a cross-examination or the evidences and all? So they will approach NFAC or AO on receiving the request. They will approach to NFAPC. NFAPC, what they will do, they will send the request that look, this is the document that is required to the appeal unit. After considering the request, prepare a notice, and this notice primarily for examination of say another person or being a witness. So maybe they will require in that case either a document from the SSC or they may require it from a third party. Who is requiring it? Say NFAC or the assessing officer. They may require it for the third party. So what they will do herein, in this case, they will through NFAPC, they will send these notices. Notices to the appellant, and the appellant will accordingly reply to NFAPC, who will then give the submission to appeal unit, and then the appeal unit will then accordingly will get that cross reply being considered, and one copy he is going to share with NFAC. If you see over here, this point, it's important issue. This implicitly suggests that if NFAC or AO requires any further documents or evidence which they cannot directly ask from the appellant because they don't know who is the appellant, it need to be routed through the NFAPC and the appeal unit. They will then prepare those documents which they will go, we will get those particular documents and the evidence or the witness information which is sought by the NFAC or the AO. So that is one particular point which has been there. Stage of passing of the appellate order. So the appeal unit herein, after taking into account all the relevant material available on the record, prepare a draft order and send such draft order to the NFAPC along with the details of the penalty proceeding, if any, to be initiated. If he is enhancing some liability, who? The appeal unit. If he is enhancing some liability, then students, there could be a penalty proceedings in respect of that enhanced liability which can also be initiated. Thereafter, NFAPC, after receipt of the draft order from the appeal unit, primarily what they can do, students, in this case, where the aggregate amount of tax, penalty, etc. payable is more than the specified amount, right now we don't know, the NFAPC shall send for the for the review. So obviously review would be done at a particular threshold level. So that is one thing which is to be considered. Anyways, so that is what they will do, or else they will finalize the order. Appeal unit reviewing the draft order. So AU2 will review the draft order. So shall review the draft order whereupon it may decide to concur the draft order. You remember in that flowchart AU2 was there. So they are the one. So either they can accept it or they will say some variations in that particular order. And finally that NFAPC herein, upon receiving the concurrence of the appeal unit, they will finalize the appeal as per the draft order. Okay. So students, this is what it is. Communication of the appeal order. To whom it will be communicated? Appellant, CIT, because at the end of the day they have to get it implemented. So for them it is only for implementation. And the NFAC and the AO to decide whether they want to take it further. Procedure for imposing the penalty. Students, as you know, he would have enhanced the liability, and if he would have enhanced the liability, then on the enhanced liability they may initiate the penalty. On the enhanced liability, students, they may initiate the penalty, and therefore appeal unit may send recommendation for initiation of any penalty proceedings for non-compliance of any notice, direction or order issued under the said scheme on the part of the appellant or any other person, as the case may be. Recommendation would be given to whom? To NFAPC, and then they will serve a notice, show cause notice to whom? To the appellant, and accordingly they will pass the response. Response would be given to him. They will then assign what? Assign specific appeal unit. Okay, for what? For imposing the penalty or dropping the penalty, to decide whether the penalty needs to be imposed or not. So please understand one thing, that it may not be necessary that the one who has done the addition is the one who is also primarily would be the one who would be imposing the penalty. There may be a change of the appeal unit who would be looked upon for the purpose of what? For the purpose of the passing of the penalty order or dropping the penalty order all together. It may be same or it may be different, as the case may be. So they will draft the order or they will drop the penalty. So that will be given back to whom? To NFAPC, who will then finalize the order, pass the order, and then it will be given to whom? To the appellant, as the case may be. So it's a simple thing. Primarily, just the flow is the game, students. At the end of the day, what I have realized is that the flow process is the game. So that master flow chart, and for each of the steps, the flow of this one. Again, I'm repeating, this chapter is only relevant because the procedure is only what you need to know, how the movement is happening. And that is what you just need to know so far as this particular process is concerned. Take it from me that if at all anything would be there only for MCQ. Again, I'm repeating, and make no mistake. Don't think that you don't have to do assessment chapter or the appeal chapter. No, this is only about the procedure, the substantive provision. Primarily, all that remains the same. What only changes is the procedure in which it will be done. Okay. So therefore, it is only the procedural flow which has changed, and therefore this is for MCQ, and that is for all that we have learned in the context of the case laws or the other relevant provision of law. So students, please revise this particular, whenever you go through this, do revise this particular flow process, as it is a flow process which would be the ultimate game for your examination. See you then, students. Thank you very much.